In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and the whispering trees of the African savanna, there lived a man named Cato, a proud and respected hunter. His name echoed through nearby villages because of his strength, wisdom, and wealth. Yet, for all his greatness, Cato carried one deep disappointment in his heart. He had no sons. His wife, Ama, had given birth to two beautiful daughters, Abini, the elder, gentle and thoughtful, and Zuri, the younger, spirited and fearless. Together, they filled their home with laughter, songs, and joy. But Cato's pride was restless. He believed only a son could carry his name and legacy. Every morning, when Abeni and Zuri helped their mother prepare his hunting tools, Cato would sigh deeply. "A man's strength must not die with him," he would mutter, tightening the strings of his bow. "Who will protect this home when I am gone? Who will carry my name?" Ama would try to comfort him. "Our daughters are strong, my husband. Abeni has your patience, and Zuri your courage." But Cato would shake his head. "Courage belongs to men, Ama. A woman's place is in the shadows." Those words cut deeply into his daughters' hearts, especially Abeni's. She adored her father and wanted nothing more than to make him proud. Every evening, she watched him return from the forest with game over his shoulders and the villagers cheering his name. She dreamed of walking beside him one day, bow in hand. Zuri, on the other hand, refused to accept his scorn quietly. One night, as the moonlight fell through the cracks of their thatched roof, she whispered to Abeni, "Why should we be ashamed for being girls? I can climb, I can hunt, and I can be brave." Abeni smiled sadly. "Father will never see it that way." "Then I will make him see," Zuri said, her eyes glowing with determination. One morning, when Cato prepared for a great hunt that would last many days, Zuri followed him secretly into the forest. She moved quietly through the tall grass, her small feet leaving light footprints in the soil. She wanted to prove that daughters could be just as capable as sons. But deep in the forest, danger waited. As Cato aimed his bow at an antelope, a rustle came from the bushes. Before he could react, a leopard leaped from the shadows, its roar splitting the air. Cato shouted and turned, but before the beast struck, Zuri appeared, throwing a stick to distract it. The leopard lunged at her instead. Cato fired an arrow straight through its heart, saving her life. When the beast fell silent, Cato's fury erupted like thunder. "You foolish child," he roared. "You could have died. You are not meant for the forest. You are meant for the hearth." Zuri, trembling, tried to speak. "I only wanted to help. I wanted you to see that." "Enough," Cato shouted. "You have shamed me before the spirits. From this day forward, I have no daughters." Abeni, who had run after them upon hearing the screams, arrived just in time to hear her father's cruel words. She fell to her knees, begging, "Father, please." She meant no harm, but Cato turned away, his face hard as stone. "Both of you leave my sight. The gods cursed me with daughters when I prayed for sons." With tears in their eyes, the sisters fled into the forest as thunder rumbled in the distance. The proud father stood alone, his anger echoing into the wind, unaware that his pride had just set fate into motion. The sun sank low over the horizon, its orange glow fading into the long shadows of the African wilderness. Abeni and Zuri walked barefoot through the tall grass, their hearts heavy with pain. Behind them, The smoke from their village rose like a ghost, a reminder of the home that had cast them out. Abeni tried to stay strong for her younger sister. "Don't cry, Zuri," she whispered, though tears glistened in her own eyes. "Father's anger burns hot, but it cools fast. He will call us home." But Zuri shook her head stubbornly. "No, Abeni, he meant what he said. We are no longer his daughters." They walked until night fell, guided only by the light of the moon and the sound of distant crickets. The wilderness was alive, the rustle of leaves, the hiss of unseen snakes, the howl of jackals. Every sound made Abeni's heart race. Still, she held Zuri's hand tightly, whispering prayers to the spirits of their ancestors. By dawn, they reached the edge of the great river, its waters glimmering in the morning sun. They knelt beside it, thirsty and exhausted. As Zuri drank, she noticed something unusual. A tall, slender woman standing on the opposite bank, dressed in flowing white cloth that shimmered like mist. Abeni gasped softly. "It's the river spirit," she whispered in awe. The woman smiled, her eyes deep as the water itself. "Why do you wander so far from your home, children of Cato, the hunter?" Abeni bowed respectfully. "Our father has cast us away. He says we are not worthy to bear his name." The spirit's expression softened. "Ah, the pride of men. It blinds even the wise." She motioned for them to come closer. "Do not weep. The river rejects no one. Drink from it, and you shall find strength where men see weakness." The sisters drank, and as the cool water touched their lips, they felt warmth spread through their bodies. Their fear melted away. The river spirit raised her hand, and the water rippled into shapes, images of the future. "A storm is coming to your father's village," she said. "The hunters will fall, the crops will fail, and only those with hearts of compassion will restore peace." Zuri frowned. "What can we do? We are only two girls." The spirit's smile deepened. "The gods do not see daughters and sons, only hearts. When the time comes, your courage and love will heal what pride has broken." Then, as the wind rose, the river spirit vanished, leaving only ripples and silence. The sisters built a small shelter near the riverbank. They hunted small animals, gathered fruit, and learned to live from the land. Zuri, brave and quick, made traps to catch fish. Abeni, gentle and wise, learned which herbs could heal and which could harm. Together, they survived. But far away, in their old village, trouble brewed. Cato returned from another hunt to find his traps empty, his crops withered, and sickness spreading among the animals. The elders whispered that the ancestors were displeased at night. Cato dreamed of his daughters, their faces pale beneath a stormy sky. A voice echoed through his sleep. "The blood you cast away shall be the blood that saves you." He awoke, drenched in sweat, haunted by guilt. But pride chained his heart. "I will not beg for what the gods denied me," he muttered. Yet deep down, he knew the spirits were watching, and his punishment had only begun. Back by the river, Zuri looked to the sky, sensing the winds changing. "Do you think father dreams of us, Abeni?" Her sister smiled faintly. "If he does not yet, he soon will." The wilderness was no longer a place of exile. It had become their refuge and the beginning of something greater. Dark clouds gathered over Cato's village. The once busy market had fallen silent, the laughter of children replaced by coughs and cries. The rains had stopped for months, and the fields cracked open, like old scars. The hunters returned empty-handed, their faces pale and defeated. Each night, the villagers gathered around fires, whispering in fear. "The spirits are angry," said one elder. "Perhaps someone offended them." Another murmured, "It is Cato's pride. The gods do not bless a man who rejects his own blood." Cato tried to ignore their words, but deep inside, guilt clawed at his heart. He hadn't seen his daughters since the day he cast them out. He told himself they were safe, that the wilderness had not swallowed them. Yet his dreams said otherwise. Every night he saw Abeni and Zuri walking through mist, their faces lit by a strange glow. They called to him, but when he reached for them, they vanished into the river. Then the water would turn red like blood, and a deep voice would say, "A father who rejects love shall watch love reject him." Haunted by these visions, Cato sought guidance from Mama Doro, the oldest seer in the land. Her hut smelled of burning herbs and mystery. When he entered, she did not look up. "You have come too late, Cato," she said. Before he even spoke, he knelt before her. "Tell me what I must do. My village suffers. Our land is dying." The old woman stirred a bowl of water and looked into its reflection. "Your curse began when you spoke cruelly to the children who carried your blessing. You cast away your heart and called it weakness." Cato's throat tightened. "My daughters," Mama Doro nodded slowly. "They live but far from you, and the spirits protect them now. To end this curse, you must seek their forgiveness." He bowed his head. "I will go. I will find them." But the journey would not be easy. The forests had grown wild, filled with beasts and spirits that tested a man's soul. Cato gathered his bow and set off, leaving behind the emptiness that had once been his prideful home. Meanwhile, near the River of Echoes, Abeni and Zuri had grown stronger. They had built a small life, one of peace and purpose. They cared for wounded travelers, shared food with wanderers, and sang songs that filled the valley with warmth. One morning, as Abeni was fetching water, she noticed the river flowing slower than usual. The once clear water had turned murky and cold. She felt unease. "The river is sad," she whispered. Zuri joined her, gazing into the rippling current. "Perhaps it feels the pain of the land." As they watched, the wind shifted, and the familiar glow of the river spirit appeared once more. Her face was grave. "Children of compassion, the land of your father bleeds. His pride has summoned drought, his sorrow feeds the curse. But your hearts hold the power to restore balance." Abeni's voice trembled. "We cannot go back. He cast us away." The spirit nodded. "Forgiveness is not for him alone. It is for your own freedom. If you carry anger, your light will dim." Zuri clenched her fists. "But why must we heal the wound he made?" "Because only love can mend what pride has broken," the spirit answered softly. "You are the daughters of balance, the chosen keepers of harmony." Then the river fell silent again, leaving the sisters to stare at one another. Abeni sighed. "We must return, Zuri, not for him, but for the people." Zuri's eyes softened. "Then we go together." And so the sisters packed what little they owned and began their journey back through the wilds. The sky above was dark, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Far away, walking from the other direction, Cato too made his way toward the same destiny, where pride, pain, and forgiveness would finally collide. The morning sun rose weakly, filtered through the haze of dust that hung over the dying land. The drums of the village were silent, and even the birds had abandoned the trees. The curse of drought weighed heavily on every soul, but beyond the hills, two familiar figures walked their steps slow, yet filled with quiet strength. Abeni and Zuri, the daughters once rejected, were coming home. Their hearts trembled with both fear and courage. Zuri broke the silence first. "Do you think he'll even look at us?" she asked, clutching the strap of her worn satchel. Abeni gave a faint smile. "If he doesn't, we'll still look at him with forgiveness." Their journey had changed them. They were no longer frightened girls. The river spirit's blessings had given them wisdom. Their eyes shimmered faintly like water in moonlight. Each step they took seemed to whisper peace into the ground beneath their feet. As they neared the edge of the village, they saw how bad things had become. Crops lay shriveled. The air smelled of smoke and hunger. The people who once laughed freely now sat hopelessly outside their cracked huts. When the villagers saw the sisters, they froze. Some gasped. Some whispered, "Are those not Cato's daughters? The ones he cast away?" But look, their eyes. They shine like the river. Children peered out from behind huts, curious and awed. Then an elder Nuru, the storyteller of the village, stepped forward. His face was carved with years of wisdom. "If the spirits have sent you back, then perhaps hope has not died yet," he said gently. Abeni bowed respectfully. "We come not as daughters of Cato, but as daughters of this land. The river spirit has shown us that peace can still be restored." The people gathered closer, drawn to the calm in her voice. For the first time in months, they felt something stir, hope. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Cato was still on his own journey. He was weak, covered in dust, his proud posture broken by exhaustion. He had faced beasts, thirst, and his own guilt. Each night, he whispered to the wind, "Abeni, Zuri, if only I could see you again." That morning, as he stumbled out of the forest, he saw smoke rising from the village. His heart ached. "I'm too late," he thought. But when he reached the gates, he stopped dead in his tracks. There, in the center of the square, stood his daughters, radiant, alive, and surrounded by the people. The sun broke through the clouds, a golden beam landing right where they stood. Cato's knees gave out. Tears he had buried for years burst forth. "My daughters," he whispered hoarsely. The crowd turned to him. Silence fell. Abeni and Zuri looked at their father, the man who had cast them away. He crawled forward, his pride gone, his heart bare. "I was blind," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought strength meant power, not love. I cursed the ones who carried my light. Forgive me, if there's any mercy left in your hearts." Zuri trembled, her eyes shining. "We were angry for a long time," she said softly. "But the river spirit taught us that hate only feeds pain." Abeni knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Father, forgiveness isn't something you earn, it's something you accept." Cato looked up at her, his voice breaking. "Then I accept. And I thank the spirits for sending my heart back to me." At that moment, thunder cracked across the sky, but it wasn't angry thunder. It was the rumble of renewal. Fat raindrops began to fall, splashing onto the dry earth. The villagers gasped, lifting their hands toward the heavens. Zuri laughed through her tears. "The curse is broken." And indeed, it was. The rain poured freely, soaking the fields, washing away dust and sorrow. The people danced, their cries turning to songs. As the storm cleansed the land, Cato held his daughters close. "From this day," he whispered, "the world will know no father is whole without the love of his children." Abeni smiled. "And no child is whole without forgiveness." The sky glowed with light, and for the first time in years, the land of Cato breathed again. The rain fell all through the night, soft at first, then heavy, washing away the ashes of drought and despair. The cracked earth drank greedily, as if trying to make up for all the lost years. Rivers that had run dry began to sing again, and the trees stretched their arms toward the heavens, reborn in the rhythm of forgiveness. By morning, the village looked different. Smoke no longer rose from dying fires. Instead, laughter and music filled the air. The people danced barefoot in the mud, their hearts light for the first time in years. They spoke of the miracle that had come when the daughters returned, and how the sky itself had bowed to their love. Cato stood at the edge of the river, his reflection rippling softly beneath the surface. The lines on his face seemed lighter, his eyes filled with both shame and peace. His daughters stood beside him, Abeni calm and graceful as water, and Zuri bright and fierce as lightning. For a long time, none of them spoke. The river murmured its own song, the same river that had guided the sisters through exile, the same one that carried the whispers of the spirit. Finally, Cato broke the silence. "When I was young," he said quietly, "I thought strength meant never bending. I thought love made a man weak. But the drought taught me that even the strongest tree must bow to the rain." Abeni looked at him gently. "Pride blinds even the wise, father. But what matters is that you opened your eyes before the end." Zuri smiled faintly. "And maybe now we can teach others that forgiveness isn't surrender, it's freedom." Cato nodded, turning to the village behind him. "Then let this place remember your names, the daughters who forgave and brought life back to the land." The people gathered near the riverbank, carrying baskets of seeds and offerings. Nuru, the old storyteller, stepped forward and raised his staff. "From this day," he declared, "the drought shall be remembered not as punishment, but as a lesson that no heart is beyond healing when love returns." He turned to the sisters. "Abeni, Zuri, the river remembers you now. Every time it flows, it will whisper your story." The villagers cheered, throwing petals into the water. The petals drifted away, glowing faintly as if blessed by unseen hands. Then, as if answering their celebration, the river spirit appeared once more, her form rising from the mist, shimmering in the golden light of dawn. Everyone fell silent. Her voice was soft, like the hum of wind through tall grass. "Children of compassion," she said, "you have fulfilled the will of balance. You turned sorrow into mercy, pride into peace. The land breathes again because you chose love." Abeni and Zuri bowed deeply. "We only did what our hearts knew was right." The spirit smiled. "And that is the greatest wisdom of all." She turned to Cato, her gaze kind but firm. "Father of the daughters, your heart was once as dry as this land, but now it flows again. Remember, forgiveness is a river. Stop it, and all life withers. Let it flow, and all things grow." With that, she vanished into a spray of light, leaving behind the scent of rain and the echo of peace. Years passed, and the village of Cato became known far and wide is the village of the river's daughters. Travelers came to drink from its streams and to hear the tale of how two sisters turned rejection into redemption. A Beni became a healer, her touch soothing pain and fear alike. Zuri became a teacher, guiding the young to listen not only to their elders, but to their hearts. And Cato, the once proud hunter, became a humble storyteller, sharing his shame and salvation so that no other parent would repeat his mistake. Each evening, the three would sit together by the river, watching the sun melt into gold upon the water. And whenever the wind passed over the waves, it whispered their story, a story of pride, loss, forgiveness, and rebirth. Moral of the tale: pride can build walls, even love cannot climb, until forgiveness breaks them down. The strongest families are not those that never fall apart, but those that find their way back to one another.